Today we're going to make this entryway, organizer, coat rack thing with some really cool brass accents. This build will use some more advanced tools for a relatively simple project. For a more accessible DIY project, I'll put a link to an Evan and Katelyn video below. This will be the start of a series of projects that have been commissioned by a client on Combs Design. First, I used my joiner and planer to mill up my rough lumber. My thickness for the back and the shelves are 3/4 of an inch. And my lathe blank for the coat hook pegs are a little over an inch square. Once I found the size of my brass caps for the coat hooks, I began shaping the blanks to size. When I got the piece down to the correct diameter, I went over to the table saw and cut my coat pegs with a 45-degree angle on one of the sides. The brass caps are made to be screwed in, but since the margin of error to find the center on such a small piece can be quite difficult, I first epoxied the cap hardware to the peg. Once dry, I could go back later and add the screw. From here I could move on to the back piece. I used my biscuit joiner for alignment and glued up my panel. The biscuit joiner has been a really great addition to my shop recently and has allowed my panel glue ups to be much more level and consistent along the seams. After the panel had dried and I cleaned it up, I could then move over to my crosscut sled to square up the ends to their final dimension. The shelves are made out of a single strip of walnut, with a dado groove cut in to create a lip. I make these pieces oversized so I can maintain a temporary back lip for support while going over the dado stack. Once my groove is cut, I can then rip the strip to its final depth at the table saw and final length on the crosscut sled. The smaller of these shelves uses magnets as key holders. I drilled out a recess on my drill press and glued the magnets in with epoxy. Epoxy will hold up much better long term as opposed to super glue. If you want to support my channel, click subscribe. This is the best way you can help me continue to make free content on YouTube. Now that all my pieces are assembled, I could begin marking out all my locations for the shelves and the coat pegs. I used a combination of wood glue for long-term stability and super glue to act as a temporary clamp to hold the pieces in place while the wood glue cures. You'll see me use a plastic drinking straw because that works great to get into the tight spots to remove any squeeze out. I see a lot of makers use a super glue accelerator when they use this trick. The accelerator makes the super glue dry instantly and really leaves no room for error when you place the piece. I don't use an accelerator, and that gives me roughly 30 seconds of working time to get things placed and square. I'm sure you're thinking to yourself, these butt-type joints aren't going to be the strongest, and that's true. So to reinforce them, I use screws through the back of the panel to give everything more stability for the long haul. I originally designed this with a doweling system in mind for stability, but I used screws instead because it gave me more flexibility for slight changes once I got to this assembly stage. I transferred all my markings to the back side of the piece, pre-drilled, and countersank all my holes. Then I was able to drive my screws in. Finally, I applied 3 coats of a wipe-on polyurethane, and after 24 hours, applied and buffed out a coat of paste wax. For hardware, I used these metal French cleat type hangers for mounting flexibility for the client. I am super happy with the aesthetic of this piece and the final product. The walnut and brass are a classic combo that really make a statement for a mid-century modern piece. I'm sure I'll get asked, and these magnets can hold heavier sets of keys as you'll see here, with no problem at all. Over the next few weeks, I will be building a pair of tactical mid-century modern nightstands, a flat pack lamp, and a floating set of bookshelves for this same client. Subscribe and be on the lookout for those videos.